So Adidas are lying to us, and it's a weird lie. They've been saying that this is the first ever Adidas women's fit boot, which is just categorically not true. It's great that we have another women's fit option from Adidas. They're taking it more seriously. It's something that they need to do in the market. But to say it's the first one, bit weird, kind of a lie. We're not going to worry about it too much though. What we're going to do is go through all of the shape changes and work out if this is the right shape boot for you and your foot. Because if you have the right shape foot, this could be a fantastic option. All of those along with the new outsole. We'll start by looking at some of the extras. So we've got a string bag, lovely purple with accent kind of highlighter yellow. And yes, of course, this does look remarkably similar to the Nike United pack that we got quite recently, which was also aimed at female athletes. Now, it wasn't women's fit because Nike don't have a women's fit boot, but it had women's endorsees, women's names down the side of the boot. And Adidas have dropped a boot in almost exactly the same colors. Like, these two need to get together and come up with some original ideas. Anyway, I think it looks great. So the box is this white with kind of chrome silver look, which is pretty cool. And then you'll see on the end here for the sizing, the UK size is the same. It's a UK 7. There's no women's UK sizing that's different. However, the US sizing is slightly different because women's US to US men's sizing are different, just to confuse things. As always, look at the Japan sizing. 255, 25.5 centimeters, which is what I would normally buy in an Adidas F50. You also get in the box 2 insoles. So you get 2 sets of insoles. Let's get the other ones out here. And they are very different. They're a lot more different than what you're going to get from, for example, the regular F50 releases, where you get the speed and the comfort insoles. Here you are getting 2 completely different insoles that actually do adjust the fit of the boot quite significantly. So the speed ones are the standard speed insoles, very thin all the way through, really nice top microfiber synthetic, and they're just a good insole. I don't really have a problem with these. However, what you also get is these, which are women's specific insoles, which are essentially a bit more solid. They have a bit more kind of padding to them, and most importantly, they run up into your arch a little bit more. Now, I've tried these boots on with both sets of insoles, and I can barely wear them wearing these insoles. I have to put the speed insoles in. But of course, the obvious here is that I'm a guy reviewing a pair of women's boots, so it's going to happen. I'm going to give you the best information that I possibly can, but I suppose this is my call, my plea that hopefully we get some more women's reviewers in the space, because they are desperately needed for the number of women's players that we have. I will do my best job, but these boots weren't made for me, so we'll see what we can do. Let's have a chat about the outsole, which is a really big change, and for any brand to develop a brand new outsole is generally quite expensive. So for Adidas to go to these lengths, I think is really, really positive. Now, it is a little bit of a variation of what we get on the regular F50 and F50 Messi. It's quite simply the same style of studs, these almost half moon, not quite a half moon, but you get a lot of those through the boot, but they've taken out some of the more aggressive studs. So you've got these options through here, these blades that have come off, for example, the Ghosted, they've all gone, and absolutely everything is way more conical. Everything does seem to be a little bit lower in profile. There is more studs, giving you a little bit better pressure distribution, and I haven't been out and played in these for 2 reasons. One being that they don't really fit my feet properly, and the other being I wanted to get this review out to you quite quickly. But I imagine that this is going to be a great FG AG option, maybe slightly on the aggressive side there. And overall, this is a really positive move. If you don't know, there's pretty much an epidemic of women's knee injuries in the game at the moment, and some of that is definitely coming down to boots that aren't fitting them properly, that aren't designed for women's feet, and outsoles that fall into that category. Maybe there's certain outsoles that are exacerbating this issue. So to have a less aggressive style outsole, definitely well worth it. Now again, speaking of Nike and that Nike United pack, this definitely looks a lot like a Cyclone to me. Like Cyclone 360 Nike, which was originally their women's tech for their Lunar, which they've now just transitioned across to all their boots. This definitely feels a little bit circular, and that looks a lot like a Cyclone. So just idea sharing? I don't know. It seems like a very good idea that's going to give you really great rotational movement through the forefoot of the boot, and I'm a big fan of that. And at the same time, it is nice and stable through the midfoot and heel with a good spring back. Now, I do not love the positioning of the bend in the outsole here. Again, without having played in them, just kind of run around in them a bit. It's kind of a little bit far back for me, but it is super responsive from that point, even compared to what you get on the regular F50. It's way more responsive than that regular F50 if you ask me. And I think that responsiveness combined with all of these conical studs and the rotational movement is going to give this a really lovely uninterrupted feel as you kind of glide across the turf. So I think a massive positive here, and yeah, nicely done, Addy. Okay, on to the upper, and most of you will have noticed that I have these with the standard build. So this has the compression fit tongue that runs down the middle. Addy did make this also in takedown models, which is great. They also made it in a laceless version, and they've also made a mid-cut collar version. Not this one, this is the old one, but they have added a mid-cut collar version. Supposedly, women's athletes prefer the mid-cut collar look, so that's why they've made that. I don't know if that's just marketing, but they're not the only company to say it. So there is a mid-cut collar available. I went for this one for two reasons. One, I figured it would fit me the best, and two, it would likely give me the most adjustability for a boot that I was fully expecting to struggle to get on and wear, because quite simply, again, my feet are not designed for this particular boot. Now, that's not to say that men's feet can't fit in this boot. It's to say that I have a wide man's foot, which means that it's not going to fit in this boot as well as it's supposed to, and that's absolutely the case, but we'll get onto that when I talk about the fit. Okay, the fit and all of the shape changes. What are they? Firstly, we've got the toe box, which is slightly wider and has a little bit more volume in it. So if I put it side by side with the previous women's variation, which has the same toe box as the regular Adidas F50, you should be able to see there that there is a little bit more volume. It kind of comes up to just a higher point just here. Now, in terms of the actual width, you can't really see it from here, but you can definitely feel that there's a little bit more width just here. And it feels like the whole upper just rolls outwards a little bit more rather than coming down reasonably flat. It feels like it kind of rolls around the sole plate just a tiny bit more. This is again because traditionally a woman's foot would have a wider or require a more voluminous forefoot in the boot. I don't know if I've made up the word voluminous, by the way, but we're sticking with it. Then we move into the midfoot area. Now this is where we have pretty much the biggest impact for me, where the volume has been lowered. So this is a much lower volume area, and this does impact me. I can definitely feel that all the way across the boot, and it's a sensation that I don't love. So this is where your own personal foot type comes in. You've got to make sure that you don't have a really high volume midfoot, otherwise these are gonna suck. So you want that lower volume midfoot idea, which again, most or a lot of women's feet would traditionally have. You also then combine that with the insole, and of course you're getting a higher arch that's going to raise up into here, a lower volume, and you're just going to get an overall more secure, more and much tighter fit that's going to be a lot nicer for people who have that foot shape, i.e. women. The other thing that I do want to point out, which is the area where I personally had the biggest problem, was the width just here. It does feel like you get that wide toe box, then it starts to taper in to that kind of narrower midfoot as well. And where that starts to taper, this is very, very tight for me. And when you combine it with that slightly, well, not slightly, just that stiff upper, there's no stretch, there's no give, and it was really, really tight for me here. And the reason that I just wouldn't absolutely be able to wear these boots pretty much in any way. That's not a criticism, it's just a notification that this particularly isn't working for me. Then as we come back the boot, we've also got a new heel design, which I actually really like. I think this is really nice. The padding is a little bit increased, the shape is a little bit more pinched, and I think overall it's pretty comfortable and very, very positive. I don't think there's many people, unless you've got a particularly wide heel, that are going to dislike the change here in the heel, because it is just that little bit more comfortable, if you ask me. So they're your main changes. So what you're looking for if you want to go for these boots is potentially a slightly lower volume, slightly narrower midfoot without wanting a particularly narrow pointed forefoot, because you have the opposite of that here. And the heel, I think, generally is going to work. Seems to be a great shape for a traditional woman's foot, and for anybody who has that slimmer foot out there that wants a really close fitting F50, which surely that's the way to go with an F50 speed boot. But for me personally, with my wide, more traditional man-shaped foot, these are not comfortable. So I think this is a really great move in the right direction. It still holds on to the F50 issue that I don't like, which is the upper itself, but the change of fit overall I think is really positive, provided it works for women, which I think is just thrown into the light of day so much more than I was already aware of it, the lack of female reviewers out there and the fact that we definitely need some more in the game. So if anybody's thinking about starting, please go ahead and do it, because I am not the best person to be talking about this. I think this new outsole is really positive and I'm really looking forward to that. I think more needs to be done to try and address what actually works for women in terms of fit, in terms of biomechanics, because they're very differently built. So we should have things that are specifically for them. And in this case, very definitely not for me. If you want to see that messy F50 review I mentioned earlier, I will leave a link just here.